Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Formbook. It's a Festival Trials Day special as Dan Overall and Jake Price look ahead to all the feature action at Cheltenham this weekend.
It is Sir Gino in the Cleeve Hurdle.
We knew he had the engine, it was just a case of whether he could put it all together.
He's got a lot of speed.
The faster he's going, the better he jumps.
The new line has won the Turners.
He's just brilliant, very special. I just think he can do so much.
You know, I think there's a lot to look forward to with him.
Everybody's done some job to get him back.
I love him. He can do it all.
Yeah, that's the feature race, the International Hurdle, but a decent supporting card. Dan, what do you make of the card overall?
There's some interesting clashes on there. Obviously, Sir Gino, the new line, being maybe the highlight of it. Although the way we tend to hype up these 2 mile hurdlers, it's almost certain Brentford Hope will go and win just to ruin the fun. The Cotswold as well, some interesting types in there and some competitive handicaps throughout the card, which are normally a good pointer towards the Cheltenham Festival.
Yeah, as Dan says, Jake, sort of small but select fields in the feature races, but a decent competitive card overall.
Yeah, for sure. And that little intro there whets the appetite, doesn't it? I can't wait to get to Prestbury Park on Saturday and enjoy the clash. Hopefully it's a good one.
Okay, let's start with sort of the graded-ish action. The 12:40 at Cheltenham, 11 to 10 favourites Maestro Conti, Manila Yoga at 3-1, One Horse Town at 7-1, Tonto Le Tout at 10-1, 14s for Hardy Stuff, 20-1 bar. Nicky Henderson had 5 in at the initial stage. Neither of them line up here, including Phil Guts. Where would you be leaning towards here, Dan?
I think Maestro Conti's priced up on a lot of potential rather than substance. Obviously, he skipped round the last day. Those in behind weren't of his level. And I thought 11 to 10 was just a bit too short. Whereas Manila Yoga, I thought his opposition at 3-1 does bring some perhaps more solid form credentials. Yes, he was getting a lot of weight from active innocence the last day, but it was still an impressive performance. And you've got to remember these juveniles to get that weight for age for a reason. Generally speaking, I think if you get a juvenile who's able to compete in open company and compete well, they tend to be well above average. And I think even you look at races like the Fred Winter, I think you tend to get horses in there that have run in open novice hurdles. They tend to have a very good record. So he came with a decent reputation when he won at Fairyhouse on more testing ground, which is going to be crucial. So we know he handles these sort of conditions. He's getting £3 from the Skelton horse as well. And I just thought at the current prices, he looked a little bit too big.
Okay, Manila Yoga then for Dan. What about yourself, Jake? Are you also wanting to take on Maestro Conti?
Yeah, I mean, as Dan said, he's a short price. You can definitely see him as the most likely winner. What he did at Kempton was good, but I think the reputation he holds at home is even stronger than that. So if he goes and puts in a similar level of performance, and if not, improve as you would expect a juvenile to do, run to run, then he probably would be the most likely winner. But as Dan mentioned, he's 13-8 favourite, probably around that type of price anyway. And it is just a short price that you're taking on trust. Manila Yoga obviously has that form of active innocence, who's favourite for the last race on the card. You can definitely see him running well. One Horse Town was obviously a course and distance winner, albeit on the old course. I thought that Tonto Le Tout was the interesting one here for Chester Williams. She's a filly who it's hard to tell how good she is, but she absolutely bolted up in the Grade 2 at Chepstow over Christmas. Now, that race kind of fell apart a little bit, but she picked up on the bridle and won by 7 lengths and, was not for stopping at all that day. As I said, it's hard to now know where her ability lies. She obviously has to carry a penalty due to that Grade 2 win in this Grade 2 contest. But she does still get the mare's allowance or the filly's allowance in this race of £7, which does help offset that. So I just thought a bigger price. She was a very interesting one each way in a race where they all have potential, but we don't know where their ceilings lie.
Okay, 10-1 then, Tonto Le Tout for Jake. And Dan, as mentioned, is with Manila Yoga. Both of them wanting to take on Maestro Conti. Competitive handicap up next is the 115. Jaguars at 7-4 Fav. Booster Bod at 7-2. Jeva Alain at 8. Triple Trade at 10s. Moon d'Orange at 122. He should be 12-1. And Uncle Bert's the same price, 14-1 bar. Jake, come to you first on this occasion. Who would you be with here?
I'll have some 122-1, please. That would be nice.
Yeah, don't fancy him at all, but that price, you got to. Everything has a price. That's the price.
Exactly. I thought that Jaguar has solid claims as favourite here. His run the last day in the December Gold Cup obviously took everybody's eye out, finishing third. Nudged up a pound for that, but the form has since been boosted by both Vincenzo and Imperial Saint, so I wouldn't be too worried about it. I'd prefer him over Booster Bob at the head of the market, because Booster Bob, I think, he's gone up £9 for that Newbury win. I didn't think it was as strong a piece of form as the Cheltenham race, even though that was a bit of a falsely run affair in terms of Glenn Gooley making all and never being cited. But the horse that I thought was a big price each way is Uncle Bert. He's around 16-1 before the markets closed, and I just thought that it was bonkers they ran him in the Welsh National over Christmas. Didn't see the angle there whatsoever. Before that, he ran at Aintree over 2.5 miles on soft ground and absolutely bolted up. Won by 9.5 lengths, beating Richmond Lake, who went to the Peter Marsh on Saturday and obviously was just denied in second place. So he's boosted that form quite nicely. But Uncle Bert returning to 2.5 miles, having completely not stayed at Chepstow, as you'd probably expect. I think that he's quite interesting here. Obviously, Nigel and Willie Swiss and Davies won the race on New Year's Day with Matata. I think that Uncle Bert going back to 2.5 miles off 138 is just a massive price to run well in a field that outside the two at the top of the market, I didn't really rate that highly.
Okay, that's Uncle Bert. I think now he's 12-1 with Bet365, as big as 16 still with Paddy Power now the markets are reopened. So there you go. 2 selections for Jake, Jaguar and Uncle Bert. Dan, your best player of the day runs here.
Uncle Bert as well was really well back for the Welsh National as well. He was a real punt on the day, which was an interesting angle. It was taking a lot of stamina on trust there, but didn't quite work out. I just think this is Jaguar's race to lose, realistically. He's one of those horses where I think going into this race, we somewhat knew that it wasn't going to be the be-all and end-all, and he was still right towards the head of the betting based on his potential and the fact he may well be developing into something like a Ryanair horse. So he missed the Paddy Power Gold Cup in November because he was going to carry top weight on ground and was getting softer all the time. So he came here fresh against race-fit rivals, made a few fiddly errors as he's inclined to do, and stayed on very well. Obviously, a somewhat fluke winner in the end with Glenn Gooley winning, making all from the front. But clearly this is a horse I don't think he's done winning in these types of events. And it's one of those where if you can't win this, you really are between a bit of a rock and hard place with him, because they seemingly think he's of a class to leap up into, say, a Ryanair and look comfortable. His jumping will maybe somewhat let him down in that sphere, but I don't think this is a particularly deep handicap. Conditions ideal. The fact that Boomborn's in here as well means he doesn't carry top weight. I think everything it is in his favour, and he just should be winning this.
Okay, everything in Jaguar's favour then, according to Dan. So that's a look at the 115 from the lads. The next race that we'll look at is the 225. The Cotswolds 1-2 Fab Great Dawning, Long Press at 9-2, Spillans Tower 5-1, Flooring Porter at 14-1. What the greatest of renewals. Is it Grey Dawnings to lose, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his performance in the Betfair Chase at Haydock was one where there was a lot of debate as to whether he would be able to go through with it. Obviously, the year before, he didn't really stay, on that heavy ground, but nicer ground, he's absolutely hacked up. Obviously, the form isn't looking the strongest. Royal Guy has been well beaten since. Handstands have been beaten since, but the manner of victory suggests that he is a horse who has improved this season. And if he goes and puts in a similar performance, I can't see him really getting beaten here. As much as Spillans Tower is an interesting horse, be interesting to see him. Jack Kennedy gets the ride as well, which is a good ride for him to pick up. He will be interesting to watch. Always thought that he could be a horse who acts at Cheltenham quite well, so it would be good to see how he does. And then Flooring Porter's in here as well, but I think the thing with him is that they need to run over fences to get qualified for the Grand National, so that's why they've come here rather than the Cleeve Hurdle instead. So that might be future targets in mind for him.
Yeah, it looks pretty tough to oppose Grey Dawning, Dan. Any note about Long Press or Spillans Tower? If you're doing a forecast, who's going to follow him home?
Just on Grey Dawning, I guess the only caveat is that you wouldn't want as much rain potentially as we might get. I think if they get really testing, they might not run him. I think they're going to be somewhat soft ground. He's going to take all the beating here because ultimately he's the one with the least questions to answer compared to his rivals. It's so hard to know where Spillans Tower is currently. Obviously, after the John Durkin, not this season, the season before, and his novice campaign before that, you thought this was a really progressive chaser who's going to make up into a proper Grade 1 horse. And thereafter, it's just been a disaster. Didn't really ever go in the King George, missed every engagement thereafter until Punchestown. He's been over hurdles. And when you're sort of yielding a staying on third to El Fabiolo back over hurdles as a step in the right direction, I think you've been in the wilderness for a bit too long. So it's hard to really have much trust in him. But at the same time, conditions should be fine. He'll have no excuse. If he's still the horse he was, he should be competitive enough. But I would probably just side with L'Imprese to chase him home, despite the Venetia Williams form obviously being abysmal. Obviously won this race last year when the yard were flying along. Very different story this year. But he still managed to run very well in December, despite the yard still being atrociously out of form. So I think sometimes these class horses can just stay above general yard form and perform despite that. Softening ground will be no problem for him. We know he acts around Cheltenham very well. I think there's more known positives about him potentially than Spallan's Tower currently. So I'd probably choose him to fill the second place.
Okay, that's the Cotswold Chase. And as Dan mentions, plenty of rain around, already soft at Cheltenham. See how much more they get. So does that mean this lad will run? 4-9 Fav Gino in the International, 2-1 for the New Line, 33-1 for the Mean Line, and 50-1 for Brentford Hope. Dan, come back to you first on this occasion then. Out of the big two in the market, are you with Gino?
Yeah, I think you'd have to be. I think for the New Line, it might be a little bit of a fact-finding mission in terms of, are they going to persist with champion hurdle ambitions? This is as probably a stiffer test as you get over 2 mile, 2 mile 1 in the calendar for this type of race. Obviously, we know if he was to go to the champion hurdle, old course, down in distance slightly, it'd be sharper. So that probably wouldn't suit him. So he should be going as close as he possibly can here. And if he doesn't, you suspect they may well go straight to Aintree, step him up in trip. But I think you look at just what they've achieved barely on form figures and the horses they've beaten. I think Gino's level of form just stands out a bit higher, even as a juvenile, beating the likes of Cargeese, Burdett Road, who franked that form no end. Lump Sum, obviously in the Fighting Fifth a couple of seasons ago in imperious fashion. The New Line there, obviously last saw him in the Fighting Fifth, it's been a bit of a subject of debate, really, as to how well he was going at the time. I think it was developing into a sprint, so it wasn't necessarily going to make him look like he was really travelling powerfully when he dived at the second last. But I guess he still does have that to prove over the minimum distance, and tactically, it'll be interesting because we saw Gino be quite keen last time. I guess there's maybe a concern of bounce potentially as well. Second start after a bit of an absence, an issue, but Gino, an abundance of speed. New Line's best case, I imagine, of probably beating him is if it turns into a real stamina test. But is he going to be the one to lay that on? Or are they going to be reliant on, say, the likes of a Brentford Hope, who attempted to do this last year and tried to make the running? Will they go forward with him? But it's hard to imagine a scenario where this turns into a real bust-up and draws out the stamina of the New Lion. And in those conditions, Gino's pace is probably just going to be a bit too much.
Jake, would you be in agreement?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of nailed my colours to the mast back in November, actually, after the Fighting Fifth. Got a few pelters on Twitter for saying that Gino might end up switching to this division. Obviously, that's ended up happening. Really good to see him back at Kempton over Christmas. For a horse to have gone through what he went through, to come back and show that much ability first time out, you can definitely forgive him for being a little bit fresh early on. But yeah, really good performance to go and beat the obviously reigning champion hurdle winner quite comfortably. I think that he's probably going to go off out in front, or at least be prominent. I think the New Line is probably going to be more held up and wait and try and pick up the pieces. Probably have one run at Gino up the hill if he can. And if you remember back to when Gino ran here on Charles Day in the juvenile hurdle that obviously we previewed earlier, he absolutely flew up the hill and extended away from his rivals really nicely. So if that happens in that scenario, I can see that happening again and the New Line being left in his wake.
Okay, that's a look at the international hurdle, and the final race to preview is the Cleeve, Impositoire, your even money fab, 4-1 strong leader, Dolly the Great 5s, Marchand 2 at 11-2, Gal Road at 12-1, and Camsinas at 33s. No Tulem, or however you'd like to pronounce it. Jake, it looks really, he's already been the strong leader once this season. It's tough to oppose him. It's tough to oppose Impositoire, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Tulem scoped dirty, which, considering he's been off for 800 days and he's missed many, many engagements in that time, seemed a bit.
Are we convinced
predictable,
he exists anymore? He's more. I see his name on paper a lot, but I'm yet to see evidence that he's actually a real horse. He's been the stayers hopeful for 3 seasons. This looked a certainty to turn up, and he still managed to find a way of dodging it. So I imagine he'll still be towards the head of the betting for the Stayers Hurdle in 2027. But it'd be nice to see him race for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. So he would have had an extra dimension. Obviously, he's not here, so let's stop talking about him. Impostoire, as you said, really hard to oppose him. Loved what he did, what he's done all season, really. He's just kept on improving. His Ascot run was good, and it sets a level above the rest of these, in my opinion. I thought Mashantu would be the interesting one each way had the ground been a bit better. I think the soft ground kind of puts me off, hit the case for him, because he seems to be a horse who acts really well on decent ground, and he's a horse who's previously struggled on softer ground. So that would be your one concern with him. I can definitely see the angle that he could get to this type of level, and perhaps next season we'll see him running in all the grade 2s that we've seen Impostoire and Strong Leader running so far this season. But just with him, I think the ground might be going against him slightly, which is unfortunate. But Impostoire, yeah, he should take the beating.
Dan, word from you. Would you be in similar lines?
Yeah, I think it's hard not to, realistically, and very much echo the Mashantu comments. If it was a quicker ground event, I can see a world in which he was quite strongly supported due to his fact that he's proven round here to be extremely effective and still has the potential for more. But in a way, it might not be the worst thing in the world if he was to disappoint and we get a good ground for temps. He might end up back there on still a favourable enough mark. Impostoire has been a bit of a revelation this season, and I think what will always keep him in good stead is that he's clearly not the type to do more than needs to be done, which I think when you look at traditionally the best 3-mile hurdlers, they all have that general trait. Like, they won't overextend themselves. They do what's necessary. He definitely seems to be that type as well. And on all known form from what we've seen, he'll take the beating here against rivals. He's shown at this point in time he's a level above.
Okay, that's the lads' thoughts on those feature races at Cheltenham. Just a brief reminder, Jake Black's Uncle Bert and Jaguar in that 1:15. In the 12:40, also said about Tonta Le 2. For Dan, Manila Yoga, and 1:15 Cheltenham. His nap is Jaguar. Right, we'll get Jake's nap and a couple of selections from Doncaster after what everyone wants to watch on Friday. Fashion Friday from Maidan.
Tries very hard, but Golden Bacoma's done it again. Marban presenting down out wider here from Danya. Marban coming away here in the final stages of the race, and J-Max strikes goal early into ball. Laurel River! Will he get there? Maybe not! And away he goes. Westacre wins the Blue Point Sprint in style. Walk of Stars still with 2 lengths at bay, and it's back-to-back on-speed wins for Walk of Stars. Romantic Warrior victorious here. Tuz goes on and bolts in the El Shindaga.
Yeah, 11 Group 1 winners running at Fashion Friday on Racing TV tomorrow. Another one of my protégés has now gone and got his own show. Utter woke nonsense. But Ash Simmons joined him for True to Form, 10-1 and above tips for Cheltenham. You can watch episode 3 on our YouTube channel right now. I'm like that talent scout. They come to me and then they leave me when they get a better offer. So thanks for staying, Dan and Jake. No, Ash will be back on the show, I'm sure.
For now.
Soon. For that.
Also, how can we segue from Fashion Friday into a picture of Andrew and Ash? I don't know. That's a serious drop off there.
In that hoodie, it definitely wasn't a bit of fashion, was it? Anyway, let's come to you first, Jake, because you've got to still give your nap. You've got a couple of sections at Cheltenham and Doncaster, so fire away.
Yeah, I'll start off at Cheltenham then just to finish off the card. It comes in the opener, push the button for Mark Walford. Really strong on his chances here. He's a horse who's developed quite nicely over fences since moving yards from Nigel Twiston-Davies. He's actually purchased by Mark Walford for 105,000, so they clearly took a decent chance on him. Won nicely on his chase debut at Carlisle, then finished half a length second to Meet Me by the Sea. And obviously, this is a really good performance considering Meet Me by the Sea has since won. He looks, I think he's favourite currently for the Jack Richards, so he looks like a horse going places, and Ben Pauling definitely likes him a lot. His last run, though, was the one that really takes the eye and makes him look a really well-handicapped horse, because he split Steel Ally and No Questions Asked in the Noel Novices Chase, the Grade 2 at Ascot. Now, obviously, he wasn't a match for the winner that day. Steel Ally was a very impressive winner. He's going to be going to the Scilly Isles next, so that's, tells you what type of level he is. He's rated 150. But obviously, No Questions Asked went to Windsor on Friday and won the Grade 2 there, the Lightning Novices Chase. He's now rated 149. Push to Buttons only rated 137, haven't split the pair. So I think he's got outstanding claims in the opener, and he should be absolutely fine around Cheltenham. He's been here a couple of times before, including the Martin Pipe in March. Over at Doncaster, Feast of a Dancer runs in the listed mares race over 3 miles. Sorry, it's a Grade 2, not a listed race. But she looks to have strong claims as well for Paul Nolan, who sends her across to here rather than going to the Galmoy at Goran in heavy ground. She, to me, I put up a tweet about her this week and had so many replies saying that she's well handicapped and she should be going to the Coral Cup. Should she win this, I'd imagine that is completely off the cards and she'll be, going to the Mares Hurdle or something like that. But she looks to me the horse who's got the most potential here. That run behind Woodhoo the last day was an extremely good performance, and I think stepping back up to 3 miles is going to suit her nicely. As you can see here, Woodhoo just about ground it out with her cut, but Feet of a Dancer was really good in second place. And then the last one is King's Threshold. He runs at Doncaster in the Great Yorkshire. It doesn't look the strongest race I've ever seen. Deep Cave is favourite, having won a couple of races, and he hasn't actually gone up that much in the weights, but he is top weight in this race. Grand Jester's in there as well. He looks quite interesting, but again, he absolutely bolted at the last day in a race which hasn't worked out that strongly. King's Threshold, though, he went to Newbury over Christmas, and he ran in a race where Annual Invictus took the lead. He made all that day, set a really frantic gallop. King's Threshold just absolutely tracked that. Loved the strong pace, went through with his effort and won on the bridle basically by 3 1/4 lengths. Rivers Corner was in that race, and he's since won the at Wincanton, the Somerset Nationals, so the form has been boosted by him quite nicely as well. I just thought that, okay, he's gone up £6 for that, but he was value for that £6 in my opinion, considering the way he won the last day, and 3 miles around Doncaster should be absolutely fine for him.
Perfect. Good stuff from Jake. So that was the 12.05 at Cheltenham, Push to Button. 1:30 Feed of a Dancer at Donny, and King's Threshold at 2:05. Dan, a few selections from you?
Yeah, I'm with Jake on Push the Button. I think there's more to come from him. Obviously, the fact he's top weight is maybe a bit of a concern, but of those who are currently ahead of him in the betting, I think Jordan's Cross is already crying out for 3 miles and maybe a bit further. Barlovento's having very different conditions here, and I thought skipping around Kempton on decent ground versus a soft ground Cheltenham couldn't be more different, and the way he travels suggests I'm not sure this test will really suit him. Canton Calafé on Vol has just proven to be very frustrating, so I thought at that kind of price, Push the Button was a very fair chance in that, and Jake's already made the case. In the aforementioned Great Yorkshire, I thought Grand Jest would potentially just assume that improvement. Obviously, he'd shown glimpses of that on his first 2 starts over 2.5 miles, impressing with his jumping in quite decent races, and then he just took his form to a whole new level on his first start of the real staying trip. An immaculate display of jumping at Haydock, and I think a track like Doncaster will also play to his strengths. He'll be out in front, sound jumper, the softening ground won't be any issue for him, and I think, yes, while those in behind perhaps haven't done mountains for the form, he's clearly just in a different parish to those at present, and a £10 higher mark I don't think will necessarily stop him. For all that he'll reach his ceiling, I'm not sure he's reached it just yet. And then another one at Utoxeter in what should be really attritional conditions is Joe Coco, the 341 there, who I think we can forgive last time out. He was quite well backed on that occasion on his first start for his new connections for the Nicky Richards team, where I think a combination of his lack of a run and decent ground just found him out, and turning in, he was still going well. The first 2 just kind of quickened away from him, and Brian Hughes very much looked after him, but he still looks very well handicapped on what he did over hurdles. He's been dropped a couple of pounds, appreciates soft ground, and just looks a real out-and-out stayer. And I see the cheap pieces on for the first time as well, an interesting angle. And he brings a very unexposed profile into a race where the others we know a lot more about.
Okay, so just a reminder, push the button at 12.05, Grand Jest in the feature at Donny, and Joe Coco in the 341 at Utoxeter. Thanks very much to the lads. Look forward to having them back with us again soon. And yeah, good luck with your fancies at Cheltenham this weekend, or Donny if you do get involved. And remember, you can watch every race from Festival Trials Day live on Racing TV. And if you scan that QR code, then you can join Racing TV and enjoy a free 1-month trial, which will also, of course, include the Dublin Racing Festival. Thanks to Dan and Jake. And remember, good luck with any selections you got this weekend. And please do gamble responsibly.